Welcome to the College Football Bros. I am Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, on today's episode, we're going to go over the reasons why Clemson will or won't win the national championship. We already released two episodes breaking down two of the other teams in the playoff, Notre Dame and Ohio State. So be sure to check those out if you haven't already. Of course, in the next coming days, we'll be releasing one about Alabama, the favorite to win. As always, let us know in the comments what you think, your predictions for Clemson here, if you think they're going to win it all, and your reasons why. And we'll start with the reasons why they will win. So we all think they're going to win, undoubtedly. They're going to dominate, probably blowouts. Tell us why, Ryan. Let's start with the offense.
Yes, that's exactly what we think. Sure. Hard not to like this offense, especially off of what they just did against Notre Dame, who is a very, very good defense. Trevor Lawrence was sharp. Amari Rodgers looked good. Travis Etienne, of course. So when you look at those three guys just alone, I mean, you got experience, you got big game experience in the playoff. They're proven playmakers. You just know that they're going to show up and play well. Maybe that defensive Ohio State can slow them down a little bit, but those guys are proven playmakers. And then you toss in a couple other guys on the perimeter that have stepped up. Cornell Powell, it's nice to see him play pretty well. And then the freshman EJ Williams had a nice game against Notre Dame as well. So kind of got some other pieces to work with. And Trevor Lawrence is averaging well over 300 yards in his last few games. So he's kind of doing what he does. He's rounding into form just in the right time. We've seen this team play well. It's a lot of the same guys. Trevor Lawrence is unbelievable. So there's really not a whole lot of holes you can poke. I think before the year started, a lot of us were concerned a little bit about the perimeter game, the receivers, because obviously the loss of Justin Ross to injury. So, and then they don't have T. Higgins anymore. So we're like, okay, who are those guys that are going to step up? We knew Rodgers was good, but so we've seen some of those guys. So it's those are the encouraging things. And I definitely think that they're top 5 offense. They're awesome.
Yeah, they've been strong on that side of the ball, but since Lawrence got back after the Notre Dame loss, they just seem to have kicked it up a notch. It's like you kind of mentioned, right? They know it's crunch time, and now it's time to flip that switch. They've been here, done that. And now they get to face an Ohio State secondary that ranked last in the Big Ten in pass defense. Clemson and Lawrence have to be kind of salivating over the prospects of that. You touch on it. We saw how they just carved up a good Notre Dame defense. No reason to think that they can't have some or even more success against Ohio State. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but it favors them. Let's put it that way. And then when I look at this Clemson offense, it is such an advantage being able to use Etienne not only in his traditional running back spot, but as a receiver. He is so valuable. I mean, his plays last year actually as a receiver in this game was one of the biggest differences in why they won that game. And so
he's a legit wideout. I mean, he's just the last couple of years he's improved so much there.
He has, and if he gets any daylight, he is so quick. And I haven't even mentioned Amari Rodgers. You briefly mentioned it. He's just gobbling up passes. So there's a lot to like about this offense.
Yeah, and you talk about Trevor Lawrence in the passing game. Obviously, we think against a questionable Ohio State secondary, they can have success. Looking ahead, if they're going to win it all, they will. Well, if they face Notre Dame, we know they can beat them. But if they more likely face Alabama, I mean, we've seen Alabama against Ole Miss, against Florida. Teams with legit quarterbacks, great passing offenses can put up a bunch of points. So it's not like they're unbeatable. If you can put a bunch.
Yeah, no, that offense will be able to move the ball against anybody. So it's top notch
for sure. And the running game is, I think, another big key here for them, because most of the year it was a disappointment. Like Etienne wasn't, averaging that 8 yards per carry or whatever he did in years prior. Last couple games, one was against Virginia Tech, who was bad, but against Notre Dame, he went off again. The running game went off. So if the last 2 games are a sign of things to come, then yeah, this offense is crazy.
Yep, totally agree.
Going on to the defense, what do you think about the defense, Trey?
The line, it isn't as experienced as last year, but having some of those blue chip freshmen up front really helps. Right? The old cliche, by now they're not freshmen anymore. The Buckeyes, their offensive line, it's very good, but they're prone to giving up sacks, and this Clemson defense likes to pressure the quarterback with Venables. Of course, they've given Ohio State gives up about 3 sacks a game. Some of the metrics out there rank Clemson as the best defensive unit. So if they get by the Buckeyes, they're not going to be totally outmatched going up against that Bama #1 offense. Skalski, he was able to get back in the fold the last few weeks. He's one of their quarterbacks back there. Nolan Turner, he's reliable at safety. They just held Notre Dame's great rushing attack, like in the most recent performance, to 1.5 yards per carry and 44 yards. And that's Notre Dame's bread and butter. That's their strength. So they can at least slow down Sermon and Ohio State on the run game, or maybe even Najee Harris and Bama.
Yeah, this is statistically the best defense that's in the playoff here remaining, and that's especially true when they're healthy. You mentioned James Skalski's back. Tyler Davis has also been back. And those 5 stars up front, Miles Murphy and Brian Brzee, they are really, really good. So front 7 going to make things difficult for Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones if they can face him. And the secondary, I mean, you brought up Nolan Turner. Darian Kendrick is one of the best corners in the country. So it's a really, really good defense.
It is, and I think they have that big advantage on that line, just with the amount of guys that they can freshly sub in and just keep going at that Buckeye offensive line. And we know Fields likes to hold on to the ball a little bit too long. They're top 5 in sacks in the country. This is just it's a tough group to face the entire game. Right, just keep coming at you. So huge effort from this defense. And Michael, you mentioned like kind of how they have some guys back, like Skalski, Tyler Davis, who missed the one game they lost, the Notre Dame game, where the defense kind of leaked a little bit, probably more than, I'm sure they would have. They had guys, their middle linebacker and their big T tackle. They have those 2 guys, and maybe they win that Notre Dame game. So, this is the best defense in the country.
I just think in general too here, just kind of before we get to the negatives, people seem to be handing Alabama the trophy or just talking about it like it's inevitable that Alabama's going to win. And they are an odds-on favorite for a reason. Like I think they're a deserving favorite probably, but Clemson with Trevor Lawrence, when Trevor Lawrence has been healthy, when they've had their full assortment of defensive players, they've killed everyone too. Like they've just won easy.
It's neck and neck to me. Like, these are 2 great programs. I mean, I would pick Bama, but it's not like it's going to be a 10-point spread or anything. This is going to be a close.
It kind of reminds me, honestly, of a couple years ago when Bama had that unbelievable regular season where they won every game by double digits and came in as the favorite. And I think Clemson was maybe like a 6-point dog in that national championship, and they ended up winning 44-16. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but we've seen before that Clemson can upset a seemingly unbeatable Bama team. Okay, well, before we move on to the negatives, actually, Clemson fans, give us that thumbs up on the video now. We've said a bunch of great stuff about your team. We're forced to say some negative stuff now. So one reason that maybe they won't win the national title is just a small reason here. In the first half against Ohio State, their star safety Nolan Turner is going to be out because of a targeting penalty in that ACC championship. So that's going to hurt going up against Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Like, you need all the help you can get in the secondary. And I also just still have some concerns about that running game. I mentioned the last 2 games were great, but that doesn't erase the previous part of the season where offensive line, wasn't quite paving holes like they have in years prior. So if the running game can't get going, looking up against a potential matchup with Bama, you're having to go get in a shootout with them. I mean, they're capable, but I would bet on Bama's receivers as opposed to Clemson.
Yeah, Michael, and you were talking there about the ground game a little bit, how it struggled. But I'm going to kind of go back to that point I was making a little bit at the beginning of the episode, and how we were talking about, a lot of people were talking about the receivers coming into the year, where that was a bit of a question mark. We didn't exactly know what they would have, and they've proven themselves to be good, like I said. But this is not T. Higgins, it's not Justin Ross, like those big time playmakers. Remember a couple years ago in the national title game with Justin Ross, when he was a freshman with Trevor Lawrence, he was making just these insanely good catches, and it was just like, wow, this guy is unreal. Like, he was the next the next coming of the next best receiver. And unfortunately he's hurt, but that's just what you need, right? I mean, if you're going to win a national title, you got to have that level of playmaking ability. And I just don't know. I mean, there's those, they're still good. I'm not trying to say they're not, but they don't have a guy quite like T. Higgins or Justin Ross right now, in my eyes. So that's a little bit of a weak point. They're still good enough to maybe to overcome it in other areas, but that's just a area of weak point, at least to where their team was a couple of years ago.
That's fair. And if I had to pick a matchup that I was looking at, to me, it would be Clemson's defense versus Ohio State or Alabama's offense. We've mentioned how Clemson's defense is probably the best, and they deserve to be. But in today's college football, the better offense tends to win that matchup more often than not. And, you're in such a predicament, like with Ohio State. Do you focus on Chris Olave and the wide receivers, or do you focus on guys like Trey Sermon at running back? You pick your poison. Alabama, do you go after Devontae Smith and Mac Jones, or do you go for Najee Harris and the running game?
No, that's a tough call.
I know. I mean, you it's a no-win situation, but you got to pick the right one and then capitalize on the other. But if they get by Ohio State's very talented offense, it's really going to be fun to see the matchup of that defense versus the Bama offense.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be the best defense that Alabama will face all year if it ends up happening.
Yeah.
Let's get to our predictions. Do we think it's going to happen? We've gone through some of the positives and the negatives. Ryan, what do you see happening for Clemson in the playoff here?
Clemson. So first matchup here we got with the Buckeyes. Everything is very close here on these.
It's ridiculous how
wow.
Yeah, we did not consult each other on scores at all.
You think we're brothers or something?
Yeah, I know. So the first matchup against the Buckeyes, I do think Clemson will hold serve. I do think they're just a little classier team. I think Clemson's very similar to last year, but I think the Buckeyes are a step back from what they were. So I do like Clemson to prevail again against the Buckeyes. So that means I have them playing, most likely Alabama in the national title game. And yeah, I do think that Alabama is just a little bit better. I think Mac Jones and their receivers are just a little more explosive. And that's why I'm going to have to give the edge to Bama to barely beat. It's going to be such a great game, though, assuming they play. I think that'll be a fantastic game, which it usually is.
That's right. So I'm like you in the Ohio State game, of course. I've got Clemson winning by just under a touchdown there. They've owned the Buckeyes in bowl games 3 of the last 6 years they've actually played. They're just more balanced, and I think Lawrence could expose that Buckeye defense. And then for the national championship, I have them pulling off the mini upset here against Alabama.
Nice.
Bama they're the prohibitive favorite, and they deserve to be, and they're the team to beat. But we've seen they're not totally invincible in a couple of the games this year. Like you said earlier, Michael, a lot of people are just kind of handing them the trophy. Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. I think Clemson has just turned the Jets on since that Notre Dame loss. They proved it by throttling Notre Dame, of course, this past week in the ACC championship. To me, they're a little bit more balanced in terms of their offense and defense. They're strong in both, and I think they can send Lawrence and ETN out as champs in a classic game.
All right, yeah, that would be great. I'm, of course, I have very similar score in that first game against Ohio State. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to take advantage of the Buckeye secondary, but then I have them, just like Ryan, going down 38-31 to Alabama. I just think Bama's offense is more complete with a very, very dependable running game, and of course we know about that insane passing game with Devonta Smith. So there you have it. Those are our national championship picks, and that'll do it for this episode of the College Football Bros. Let us know in the comments any other factors we missed about Clemson. I'm sure we've got a lot of Clemson fans watching, so your team better than we do. Let us know what we're missing here, or why Trey's right. Why Trey's right that they're gonna win it all. So we will see you next time when we discuss the betting favorites to win it all, Alabama.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.